Hello guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBench.com. Today we're going to work on this pendant that I was asked by another jeweler to come up with a creative design. I decided to do this in three different flavors. I used pink gold with white diamonds. I did this in white gold with white diamonds, and I also did it with white gold and pink diamonds as examples of my drawings. And while I was at it, I also decided to 3D print these models just in case the customer, the other jeweler I work with, his customer would want to see these, how they look in real life, because sometimes you can't really get the full effect from a photo. The settings for these models will be on the website blog, in the description below. You can hit the link over there and get to that website. I will also make these models available for free on the same page. So in the description below, the link to this blog will give you those models for free, as well as the printer settings that I used. I used the frozen castable resin, and I used Elegoo's, I think a skin tone standard resin to print these out on both my Sonic Mini Mono as well as my Epax X1. So let's get started. Okay guys, to get started, first I want to say to make this pendant, I had to try a couple of different things, and the one that worked is how I'm going to show you how to make this pendant, because I've tried this a couple different ways and I've had some issues making this pendant in an easy way. So I have to get a little more complicated in this video, and I apologize for that, but it does work, and that's the most important thing. So if you want to make this pendant, you can follow along with these instructions and you can see how I did it, or you can make something very similar. Contrary to that, if you want to download this, I will make several versions of this pendant available on my website. You can find it in the link below. So let's get started making this pendant. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my gemstone here, and I'm going to move into top view. So I'm looking straight down. So by doing that, I just hit the 7 key on my keypad, or you can use the tilde key and then go into top view. Tilde key is the little key next to the 1 on your keyboard. So I hit Shift A, come down to curve. I'm going to add in a path. I'm going to make this path a little bigger. We're going to make it about this long. And I want to rotate this along the Z axis so that it is in the Y axis position. So to rotate that to the Y axis, I will hit RZ90, and then you can see we're rotating along. Now we're following the Y axis, or the green line. I'm also going to select this, hit the tab key, and I can select each point of my path. Curves like this are made, this path curve is made of little dots, and we can move those around. So I'm going to grab this second dot here. I'm going to press the G key, and I'm going to move this over about here. And if you notice, I'm following a horizontal line all the way along from this first dot to the second dot. I'm going to grab this particular one, the center dot, with the G key to move it, and I'm going to move it over here to about like so. I'm going to grab this one here, and we're going to grab that with the G key. I'm going to move that up to about here, and then I'll grab the last dot or the lower dot, and I'm going to move that over here. So let's go into object mode, and we can see what I've basically done is made half of a ribbon. Okay, now if you want to see what this looks like as a whole ribbon, you can turn on a mirror modifier, and to do that I would just come over here to my modifiers tab using the little wrench key. I'll add in a mirror modifier, and I will rotate that along the Y axis. So let's just turn that on, and you can see here I have the basic shape of my ribbon. Now it's not perfect, and I've got the mirror turned on for a reason, because what I'm going to do is go back into edit mode, and I'm going to just adjust these a little bit to get a little more of a curve, just the way I kind of want it. It takes a little bit of work. Grab this point here and just move that a little closer, and right about here, that's good. I'll bring this one back up a little bit and out, and I'll grab this one here. I'm just going to move that about like this, and that looks fairly good. I'm pretty happy with that. So this makes for a decent looking ribbon line. The next thing I want to do is actually give this some depth and some extrusion so I can make this one solid object. So to do that, I'm going to eliminate my mirror modifier, so we'll get rid of this other half, just eliminate it like that. With my curve selected, I'm going to come back over to curve properties here, the curve properties tab, and I will come down to geometry, and let's just scroll over, and you can see we have extrude. So I'm going to extrude this a little bit, and I'm going to do that so we can see it. I'm going to move this up at an angle. So I'm just going to give that, oh, that's not bad. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's about 2.5 millimeters thick. Let's make that a little smaller. I'm going to drop that down to 2.2 millimeters is pretty good. And now I want to make this a solid object. To do that, I'm going to come over to my modifiers tab, and I'm going to select a new modifier called solidify. And the solidify modifier allows me to basically add some thickness to this entire piece. So I'm just going to grab this thickness here, and if you look at the model, I'm going to zoom in here. If you look at that model the way it is, I can basically just make it a little bit thicker, about like so. And let's keep going. Right about like that. And I'm eyeballing this. It's not, it's not the most beautiful looking thing in the world, but I think that's about what I want. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to go back over to my top view, and now let's just do the mirror modifier on this one more time so that we can make this look a lot better. So I'm going to come over to my modifiers tab. I'm going to add in a mirror, and then of course we're going to select Y and not X, and it's not bad, but now that it's got some depth and thickness, now I can see that I do want to make some changes to this, so I am going to go into edit mode and start modifying my changes. So I'm going to move this up so that I have a horizontal line between the first and second points. That gives me a nice flat location in the middle. And I'm going to move this over just to give this a little bit more of a curve, just about like so. And this is just sticking out a little too far for me, so I'm going to move that in just a bit like that. And let's see here. I kind of like that. That's not too bad. Maybe I'm going to move this up a little bit. 7. Yeah, move that up to about here. Go back into object mode, and I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. What do you think? Okay, so now I still have a little cleanup work to do on this, and if I go back into edit mode, I want to move this over a little bit, so I'm going to move that straight over about like that. And I'm giving myself a gap at this point here, and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so if I look straight down at this, what I want is these particular points to be straight. So I want my edge of my top part of the ribbon to be very parallel with this green line. Now to do that, I have to modify this point here, and I can move it up a little bit, and you'll see that it comes in pretty straight, and then I can just move this one over just a little bit about like that. I do want to keep that gap, and I'm going to explain in just a moment why I'm keeping that gap. With that done, I'm going to turn off my mirror modifier just like so. I've got that one. Go back into object mode, and my solidify, I'm going to apply that now. So I've got the object solidified. I've got a nice shape to it. I'm going to right click on this and convert it into a mesh. Now I can look at this as a flat object so that we can see it with a lot more definition, and that is the shape of my object. And what I want to do with this, and I'm just going to make my life easy, I'm going to press Control A, and I'm going to align the rotation and scale of this just to make sure. And let's do this. Set origin to center of mass. I'm going to put this in the middle of the screen. Okay, so here I've got the object completely in the middle of the screen, and now what I want to do is make a duplicate copy of this and flip it over around the y-axis to basically make my ribbon, and I'm going to show you how we do that now. Okay, so I've got my ribbon basically in the center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over just a little bit so that it's a little offset from the green marker. You can see that I've got a little bit of an offset here, and that works for me. I'm going to press Control A. I'm going to align the rotation and scale one more time, and now I'm going to duplicate this and make another copy and flip it over. So Shift D to duplicate, press Enter to finalize the duplication, and now I want to rotate this along the y-axis 180 degrees. To do that, I'll press the R key, then the Y key, and then 180, and now you see I have a duplicate of that, and I'm just going to move that over to about here, and that looks pretty good. So I've got one half of my ribbon on one side, the other half just like so, and if we look closely, if I look at this from the side view, you can see both of these ribbons are the same thickness. There's no design to this. And normally what I like to see is on a ribbon, when you lay a ribbon over another piece of itself, it kind of overlaps. Like it's never going to blend completely into itself. You want a little bit of an overlap. To accomplish that, I'm going to go in, I'm going to select this half of the ribbon. I'm going to hit the Edit key. I'm going to hit Tab to go into Edit mode. I'm going to hit A to select all. And now I'm going to use proportional editing. I'm going to grab my little proportional editing tool right here, and I'm going to select the sphere selection, and I'm going to grab this face right here, and now I can select the blue arrow and move that up, and I'm just going to increase my circle of influence and just get that overlaid a little bit. Let's go into object mode, look at this from the side, and you can see we have a little bit of a ramp up around this part of it. And now I'm going to grab this section and hit Tab to go into Edit mode. I'm going to select this face here, and I'm still in proportional editing mode. And now I'm going to move that down just a little bit like so. And let's just make that a little bit bigger, about like that. And I'm coming down. Now you can see if we turn off invisible mode, you can see we have kind of a nice surface area that comes around. We have one half of our ribbon overlaps the other, so we have a little break on either side. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. And if I want to, I can adjust this one a little bit more, and I think I will. Just bring that up just ever so slightly, about like so. And that's kind of the look that I'm going for. The next thing I have to do is join these two objects together. Now, as I mentioned before, I did have some problems designing this. I'm doing a couple quicker ways of trying it, and this was the way that worked every single time, so I'm really sticking to it. I have these two objects, and what I want to do is join them together, but I don't want to use the join key. I actually want to use the Boolean union key, and the reason I want to do that is so that where these two objects meet, this intersection right here, they will be properly meshed together so that I can work with the model as a solid unit in the future. So I will select this first side, hold the Shift key down, select the second side, and now I'm going to go to my Boolean tool, and I am going to select union. And that joins both halves together. Now if I select the Edit mode and all, you can see that we have a nice join here right in the middle where they overlap, giving me a solid space. Now I've got this gap to deal with. This gap's not too difficult. What I'm going to do now is select my face tool right here. I'm going to turn off proportionate editing because I no longer need that. And I'm going to select this face here. And then I'm going to move around just a little bit. Hold the Shift key down and select this face. So I have those two faces selected if you look closely. Oh, that's too close. I've got both faces selected. I'm going to right click on my model and I'm going to go to Loop Tools and then use the Bridge tool. That bridges the gap between both of those sides of the ribbon. We look straight down, you can see our ribbon looks pretty good. Okay guys, so my ribbon is complete, and now I need to find out how, or I need to design a path that I can use for my gemstones to follow. And what I'm going to do is, in my mind, of course, the way I've drawn this out is I'm going to have a gemstone starting here and wrapping around to about this point, and then from this point here down to the end of the right side of the ribbon. On the left side of the ribbon will be the word survivor. And this pendant is actually being designed for one of the jewelers I work with, who wants a cancer survivor pendant in the form of a ribbon. So let's take a look at how I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to enter in edit mode, and I am going to hit Control R, and I'm going to draw a loop around the surface here. So I'm going to select that, press my left mouse button twice to keep that loop all selected, and that gives me a loop in the middle of my design here. It does cut across the bottom, but we'll deal with that later. And now I need one here, so I'm going to press Control R, and there's my loop there. So I'm going to press that, and I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So I've actually added in some loop cuts into this model, which works pretty good. It doesn't really affect our model in any respect. I'm going to then select this edge. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and then I'm going to select all of these edges, just like so. This is the hard part. So I've got that selected. And now what I want to do is actually make a duplicate and separate it from this particular part of the model. So I'm going to hit P to separate selection. And then I will have this new path right here. So I've got my new selection right here, and it's separated from my model. And that line is the bottom half of the right side of the ribbon. And what I want to do now is convert that to a path. So with that selected, I'm going to come over to Object and then down to Convert to a Curve. And I'm going to call this Lower Path. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to select my model, and I'm going to select the curve on this. And now normally I could hit Shift Alt and then select another path there, and you can see it selects the entire path. If I do that, that's okay. I'm going to hit P to separate that, and then by selection I create a new path here. So we'll call this Upper Path. And I'm going to go in object mode with upper path selected. I'm going to drag that up. And now what I want to do with this is go into edit mode, if I can. And I'm going to bring this up some more. Oops, Control Z. Let's bring this up and out of the way. And what I want to do is remove this tail. So I'm going to grab my mouse and select that part of it while I'm in edit mode, just like so. I'm going to hit the X key to delete those edges, and then this edge we want to get rid of. And now I've got the upper path just the way I want in the shape of my pendant, just like so. And I'm going to convert that to a curve object also. So we will come over to Object, Convert to a Curve. So now I have an upper path, a lower path, and let's call this our ribbon. Okay, so we've got the ribbon and the two paths, and now I can start working on my model. And that is going to be that I'm going to add in some gemstones here, some gemstones around here, and then some text along the front. Okay, so first things first, let's take a look at the dimensions of our object. Our ribbon is approximately 54 millimeters tall, which is pretty good. It's a good size. It's about 2 inches, a little over 2 inches. We have a depth of about 2.8 millimeters, which means that my thickness of this is about 2 millimeters thick, and the width of our pendant is approximately 32 millimeters in width at its widest point, which would be the lower part of our ribbon. The height is what I was looking for, so I'm going to say I'm pretty satisfied with that. The next thing I'm going to do is add in a loop for a bail. Now, if you all remember how to do loops, I use a torus object, so I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to come down to Mesh, and then I believe somewhere down here is Torus. Shift A, Mesh, Torus, and that's going to add in a torus object onto our screen. We can come over here to the properties, and my keycasts are going to get in the way, so I'm going to temporarily turn those off. And then I will adjust the segments here, minor segments. I'm going to increase this to 48. So that we have some nice detail. And then that looks like a decent size for me, so I'm going to just click off of that. I'm going to take this, I'm going to move this over here, And now I can size this so that it basically matches the dimensions that I'm hoping for. Let's put this back in the middle, just about like so. And I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to move this in just a little bit so it's about like that. And that particular portion, if we look at this from the top, is where we can attach a bail to our pendant. So with that done, I'm going to select my ribbon. I will then hit Shift and select the ring that we just made. I'll use the Boolean tool to union those both. So let's make sure this is called ribbon. Okay, so now my ribbon contains a loop, and I can lower this again so that it meets the, we still have our paths showing. That's just kind of what I was looking for. And if we look at that from the top down, let's turn my keycasts back on so you can see what keys I'm using. So there's our loop at the top for our bail, and I have my path here and lower path there. Okay, looking good so far. Now I need to add in a gemstone. So let's see, we know this is approximately 2 millimeters thick, and it looks like about 3.5 millimeters wide. So I'm going to add in some maybe 2.8 millimeter gemstones. So let's go over to Jewelcraft. Let's hit the Add Gem button. Type in 2.7 millimeter on the stone size and press OK. And that looks pretty good so far, like that. I'm just going to lower that down about like so, just to give me some good idea of what that looks like. Not too small, not too big. Actually, it could be a little larger. We're going to adjust that in just a moment. Okay, so with my diamond selected, I'm going to hit the upper path, if I can select it. Shift key down, select that upper path. And now with Jewelcraft, I can go to Distribute on Curve, and it will put my diamonds along that path on the upper curve. And again, my keycast is in the way, so we're going to turn that off. Okay, so now in Jewelcraft 2.8, we have a little bit of a different setup, but it's pretty much the same. But I've got my ending position and my starting position. So where do I want these to end and start? So let's take a look at what we have here. I want my diamonds to start right about here. So that's the starting position. And my ending position, I can move along to about here. And then I have 2.7 millimeters. I'm going to increase that up to, let's say, 3.6 millimeters. That looks like a good size. And I'm going to go from 10 stones maybe to 12 stones. That looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And then once I've got those 12 stones in place, we know we've got 3.6 millimeters. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to press off of this to mount those onto the model. The next thing I want to do is add some gemstones along here. So let's go and add another gemstone with the Jewelcraft tool. Add, and then we're going to go to 3.7. Going to hit OK. And now I will take that and I will select my lower path. So Shift and then select the lower path. And sometimes I can't get it. And now I will distribute on curve. And we're going to drop this down to obviously like 4 or 5. Let's make this 5. And then let's adjust the starting position about here. And then the ending position about there. And actually I want my ending position to be a little closer towards the middle. And then I'll adjust my start position so that the spacing between these all here looks similar to that. So if I have to adjust, I can adjust it about like so. Again, I'm eyeballing this, but you can do it any way you want. Okay, so I've got those stones in place. The next thing I want to do is add in my cutouts. So the next thing I'm going to do is select each of the diamonds or gemstones, whichever you're using. I'm going to select these 5 first. I'm going to use the cutter tool. Then I will select each of the cutter tools, just like so, holding the Shift key down, then my pendant, Now I'll go to the Boolean tools and use difference to remove those. And if I just look at the bottom, you can see we've got the 5 holes at the bottom. Now I'm going to do that for the other 12 stones. So first thing I'm going to do is select, hold the shift key down, just like that. And now I'll add in my cutters with the Jewel Craft tool. Then I can select my cutters, and you can just do a group select just like so. Hold the shift key down, grab the pendant, and then use the Boolean tool to use the difference. And then we have the cutouts for those 12 diamonds. And that looks good so far. The next thing I'm going to do is add in my prongs. So I'm going to add in these 5 first. So I will select these 5 using the shift key, come over to my Jewel Craft tool, hit prongs, and now what I'm going to do is just make these 1 millimeter in diameter. I am going to select 4 prongs per gemstone, and then for the position I can rotate these like so, and that's kind of what I'm looking for, just like that. And then let's do the same for the rest of these. Looks good. Now I'm going to select my model, and what I want to do now is permanently mount these prongs to my ribbon. So let's grab prongs. I'm going to grab these 5 first, then select my ribbon, and then I am going to use the union tool to blend those in. And now I'm going to do the same with these prongs here. Select that prong, hold the shift key down, and just click on just the prongs. I've got that done. I'm going to hold the shift key down, select my ribbon, and then the union tool. And now there's my ribbon with the prongs all attached. So the cutouts and the prongs are in place, and that's what I'm going to use when I 3D print this. Okay, so in my model, in my drawing for this, of course I have the word survivor. It's indented into, or it's cut into the ribbon itself. So to do that, I'm going to add in some text. So I'm going to hit Shift A, going to hit Add Text. Let's move this out of the way, just about like so. Zoom into it, and I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode, and now backspace, and with the cap lock key on, type in survivor. We'll turn that back into an object. Let's zoom into this. And what I want to do now is give my lettering some depth. So I'm going to come over to the text tool tab here. And under depth, we're going to make that a little bit bigger. And then under extrude, I'm going to make that taller, about like so. Now I also want to space this out a little bit. So I'm going to come over to, where is it? I think it's got character spacing. And I can bring that, I can make that a little bit bigger there, and that way I can give each character just a little bit more depth, just like so. And let's reduce this spacing about like that. Let's go back into object mode, and let's make that a little bit bigger. And now I want to make this conform to my upper curve, or my upper path. So I think what I'm going to do here is convert this to a mesh right now. So I'm going to convert my text, or is it convert to mesh, and we can see it's already converted to a mesh. I'm going to leave it just like so, and then I'm going to rotate this along the z-axis. Let's do set origin to center of mass. You don't have to do that. Shift S in the center, and 7. Let's do this. RZ 180. And now I want this to follow my path, so I'm going to apply with my text selected. I'm going to come down here and add in the modifier curve, and then I'm going to select the upper path so that it follows the curve just the way I want it. And I've got this right like so, just like that. Now you can see it's elevated above our model, and I'm going to lower it down into our model just about like so. Let's come over here and just see what we can see, the depth of it. That looks pretty good, and it looks like we're about in the middle. I'm going to move that right like that. Let's move this right about here. Okay, now with that all applied, I'm going to hit apply modifier. So our curve modifier is permanent on the word survivor, and then I will select the word survivor. I will hold the shift key down, select my ribbon, and then use the difference tool, and now you can see I get the word survivor inlaid into my pendant. That looks pretty good. Let's look at this from the top down. And that's kind of the look I'm going for. And that's how I make this pendant. Now I'm going to put this particular pendant online. You can download this one for free. Hit the link below. And I'll also put the blank one where you can go and add in whatever you want. So you can start with your just a ribbon shape that we know will work, and then you can build off of it from there. Guys, I hope you liked this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was not an easy one to make. It took me a little while to figure out, but this is how you make a ribbon pendant like so. And if you want to go ahead and create this on your own, you can go ahead and follow these instructions to do it. If you like my channel, please consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help my channel grow, and I appreciate my viewership. It looks like I'm going to hit at least 3,900 subscribers by the end of today, and I appreciate all of you subscribing and watching my videos, and for all the great comments that I get. Thank you so much. Have a great day.